National Congress, knowing that yourselves, especially from television, tend to struggle with audio visuals to be able to beam to your viewers what will be happening. So we will be having an NEC of the African National Congress. It starts from tomorrow, the 26th of March, up until Sunday, the 28th of March. This is a regular National Executive Committee meeting. You'd recall that the last NEC that we held was at the beginning of February. So we'll basically be taking stock on the work that has happened since the last meeting of the National Executive Committee. We'll be having this meeting of the NEC visually because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Issues that will be delivered the NEC will deliberate on a number of issues, and key to those issues, amongst others, will be our response, COVID-19 response, as well as the vaccine rollout, local government elections, tertiary education funding, terms of reference for the Integrity Commission, as well as filling of vacancies that might have arisen, including filling of vacancies in the National Working Committee. So should there be any other matters of interest that come out of the National Executive Committee, we will be able to come out and brief members of the media at the conclusion of that NEC. At now, we are not at liberty to really substantiate on all of the issues. Safe to say that this is going to constitute the focus of the NEC. You'd also know that there are a number of other issues that had to do with our own organizational structures on the ground, how they've been able to execute the organizational work and all of that, albeit under COVID conditions. We'll have to take stock of those. Preparation for their own BBGMs, making sure that they still continue to mobilize and champion issues that affect our people on the ground. So the NEC is really going to be looking at that, getting a report on what the government response on fighting this deadly pandemic, COVID-19, as well as where they are in terms of rolling out of the vaccine, a work that the government has been doing excellently and being able to come out and give the necessary feedback. Should there be any other clarity-seeking questions that perhaps you may want to raise, you are at liberty to do so. I'm alone now because it's not necessarily a press briefing in that way, so we'll have to work in this way.
Okay, from ANC. The last meeting that we had was around President Zuma and him not appearing in the commission.
Yes.
There was that contempt of court application by the commission. You've given him space initially just to consider his decision, but it seems like that time is running out, given that today there was that application and the judgment is reserved. What is the ANC position on that? I'm sure you must have deliberated on it.
Well, of course, it's not an easy one. You would recall that I think 2 weeks ago, the Secretary General of the African National Congress came out here to report to yourselves on the outcomes of the meeting that the national officials would have had with the former President of the African National Congress, and reflected on some of the issues that the former President of the African National Congress had raised. Critical to that, which is an update that the SG gave at the time, was that President Zuma has never been opposed to appearing before the Zondo Commission or before any commission of inquiry. The reservation he had raised himself was appearing before the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. That is what he had raised. And this is a point that President Zuma has repeatedly raised out in the public, and this is a point that he also registered with the national officials when they met. He has given them assurance that he upholds the constitution of the republic, subject himself to the laws of the republic, a point that the ANC has commended. We know that these are challenging times. Hence, the officials had said it is important that the former president is accorded time with his legal team to be able to deal and address all the concerns that have been raised and deal with those with the relevant parties. You would know that we in the ANC respect the Constitution as the apex law of the land. We understand that the Constitutional Court must be given the space to do its work. We ourselves have worked hard to have a constitution that protects the rights of each and every individual in the land. And we want to believe that the Constitution will still continue to fulfill that kind of a desire, to make sure that each and every individual, including former President of the African National Congress, believes that their rights are duly protected by the laws of the land.
But it seems a bit contradictory, given that he hasn't responded to the application yet. Yet you say his issue only around the Deputy Chief Justice, but the application itself,
Hence,
which is in the Court, he hasn't given a response to what he intends. He hasn't really even engaged the Constitutional Court now, and the court is for him to be behind bars for at least 2 years. What's the ANC position on this, and even the former president having to be behind bars?
well, the ANC has already reflected on its own position. It has met with the former President of the African National Congress to accord him an opportunity to raise his own reasons on why he couldn't appear before the Commission on State Capture. He has raised his views, something that the Secretary General of the ANC came out to report to the public on. The officials concluded that kind of an engagement, that perhaps is prudent, that space is given to President Zuma together with his legal team to deal and address all of these things in a manner accorded by the prescripts of our own laws in the Republic.
Is there that space then, given that today the judgment was reserved for him to consult with his lawyers, given that he's not even engaging the Constitutional Court and his lawyers engaging the Constitution? Is there that space that you're giving him?
Well, it's critical. I mean, it's a very difficult one. It's unprecedented, it's undesirable and all of that. It's not an easy issue. The former president has raised his own issues. On the other side, there are matters that are playing themselves out in the public, some of them beyond the control of the African National Congress as an organization, because you will know that individuals themselves enjoy their very rights accorded to them by the Constitution of the Republic. All we could do in the ANC is to persuade each and every one of our members to subject themselves to the rules of the land, to have confidence that the rules of the land are sufficient to create a platform for them to ventilate on whatever concerns that they may have. This is what the ANC will do. This is what the ANC has done. The ANC has continuously gone out to encourage all of its members to appear before the Zondo Commission when so invited. And if there are concerns that members are raising, the ANC makes the time and space to allow its members to raise those and encourage them to use available legal platforms that are legitimate to be able to raise those, so that we work on finding consensus on issues of concern. What is of interest to the ANC is that at all material times, the constitution of the land must reign supreme. We must at all times ourselves come across as respecting the Constitution as the apex law of the land. And we've got to do so because the Constitution is important. It's an important cornerstone of protecting the rights of all individuals, of yourselves in the media. Your own freedom of expression is duly enshrined in the Constitution of the land. So all of us have got a responsibility to make sure that this supreme law of the land is adhered to and upheld by the rest of those that live in the country. Because when that happens, we will know that the just struggle that we advanced to fight for liberation was not in vain. Because fighting for liberation meant producing a rule book that will be able to carry forward the rules that must govern how we all live and coexist amongst each other including how we also relate with organizations and institutions of state, as well as those that are in the jurisprudence.
It seems though that the former president is not adhering to a very law that he says must be upheld with these reasons that he gave to the ANC. I want to find out that did the ANC convince the former president, try to persuade him to go to the zonal commissions? And yes, he gave you this response. What's the ANC stance then on the president's refusal to go there?
Well, without having a dialogue, really, I did emphasize that in the engagement that former President Jacob Zuma had with the national officials, and this is expressed in the statement issued by the Secretary General, he did not say he is resisting appearance before a commission. He specifically stated to the officials his resistance to appear before the Deputy Chief Justice. So we must really separate the two, because our interest is to make sure that through the very legal process that they have desired to undertake, they will be able to find reason and cause to clarify the nation on what needs to be done going forward, so that members, the South Africans, citizens, can then know that all of us, none of us, is bigger than the constitution of the country. I think that is the message that we want to see coming out there. And here is the former president who comes, meets with the national officials of the African National Congress, expresses his own views. You see, and the national officials take a stand that perhaps it's necessary that, because it's a legal process. I mean, what the national officials or the ANC would do in any normal course, the ANC can only persuade its individual members to adhere and submit to processes. That's how the ANC would work. Difficult as it is, the ANC will never get tired of sending out those persuasive messages, because we understand that all of us, our actions must at all times come out as suggesting or come out as pronouncing our respect and our upholding of the Constitution as the supreme law of the land.
And you don't view what the former president is doing as snapping the court order that's instructed?
Well, I wouldn't even want to venture into the space of talking to the merits and demerits of those actions, given the fact that space was accorded together with the national officials to raise all of those issues. We will have an NEC meeting over the next 3 days. This NEC would also have the space to reflect on these developments in the country. As national spokesperson, I am always guided by decisions of that collective, because I am not entitled to come out and express my own personal individual views. Once you agree to become national spokesperson, you give away opinion. You have got a duty at all material times to protect decisions and resolutions of the organization. The organization, as we left the last NEC, the decision was that the national officials must have an engagement with President Zuma. That kind of an engagement has already taken place. The Secretary General, by way of a press briefing, has come out to reflect on the outcomes of that briefing. Safe to say that in that briefing, where a statement was written and sent out to yourselves in the media, the national officials reflected on the issues that President Zuma himself brought up.
So something different. The ANC starts on the slow vaccine rollout plan and calls for tighter restrictions come the Easter weekend.
Well, you would have heard that one of the issues topping the agenda of the National Executive Committee this weekend is issues related to COVID as well as the vaccine rollout. We believe in our comrades who are deployed in government, are capable enough to be able to discharge on the mandate. They will be able to take us through on whatever challenges or bottlenecks that they might have faced. Remember, we are dealing with a crisis of unknown proportions. South Africa has never had to deal with a problem such as this. Tomorrow will only be the first year since the national lockdown was declared by President Cyril Ramaphosa. So we'll be getting this feedback. We'll have to appreciate that our own cadres deployed in government have had to draw and learn a number of lessons on how to be able to advance uncharted territories like these ones. So it is very important that as we listened to them, we too contribute towards solutions. They are not going to find solutions themselves alone. They also require the leadership of the ANC in the form of the National Executive Committee to be able to say, President Ramaphosa, together with your collective, we are appreciative of the efforts that you've been undertaking on the ground to deal with the pandemic. We also believe that if you introduce some of these measures that are proven to be scientific, we could be able to see an increased pace in terms of how you are either rolling out the vaccine or how you are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll be able to brief you after the NEC has concluded if there are any other issues of interest. So the ANC doesn't keep issues to itself. If there are issues that affect society, we come out to report. We'll also be getting feedback on issues related to higher education. It should be an issue of interest. I'm sure that the other issue of interest that young people seated at home are also interested on is finality on the NYTT. It's an issue of interest, because the last National Executive Committee meeting took a decision that the national officials working together with provinces need to also work on finalizing this matter so that young people could go back to the ground, work on doing what they are known of, which is to mobilize young people behind the banner of the African National Congress while championing their own interest. Thank you very much.